Welcome to Proportional Relationships, Lesson 7, page 8. So we're going to start by noticing the title again, Proportionality in Tables. Once again, this is a very important unit for us to know how to find proportionality in tables. So hopefully by now we've kind of are starting to get the hang of this. So let's see what it asks us to do. It says Savannah, Greg, and Kevin all take part-time jobs for the summer. Their hourly wages are shown in the tables below. Use the information to answer the questions below. So below it asks, what is the constant of proportionality, also known as the K value or the unit rate, of Savannah's wage, Greg's wage, and Kevin's wage? So I'm going to make some assumptions here that because they said find the constant of proportionality, we're going to assume that all three of these tables represent a proportional relationship. And how do we find that constant proportionality? Well, we're going to use our y value divided by our x value. So for all three of those, we want to acknowledge that the first column is our x value, second column is our y values. X means the hours, Y talks about the amount of dollars earned in all three tables. So when we find the constant of proportionality, otherwise known as the K value, we're taking our Y values and dividing them, come back here, pen, Y value divided by our X values. So I'm going to randomly pick any three ordered pairs on Savannah's table. Any X, and by ordered pairs I mean an X and Y value. So I'm going to start with the first one. Then I think I'm going to try this one. And then I'm going to go to the last one. I just randomly chose those. So I'm going to write Savannah's Y value. The first one was $19. And I'm going to divide it by 2. And then I have $76. I'm going to divide it by 8, and that's because it's matching. X value is 8, and I'm going to take $133 and divide it by its matching X value, which is 14. So I want you to pause and on your calculator take all of those numbers divided by their matching X values. So if you did that, hopefully you had 9.5 or 9 5/10 for all three of the random pairs we chose for Savannah. So it's safe to say the constant of proportionality, or K value, for Savannah's wage is 9.5 or 9 5/10. Now let's go and try the same for Greg's table. Again, I'm randomly going to pick some pairs, but you can pick different pairs to see if we agree. I think I'll start with the second ordered pair. I'm going to go to the fourth ordered pair and the sixth ordered pair. I'm just randomly choosing these. Again, I'm trying to go my Y values divided by my X values. So for Greg's, I have 54 divided by 6. I have 108 divided by 12. And then I have 162 divided by 18. Again, I'd like you to pause the video and let's find out what the constant of proportionality is for Greg's wage. Hopefully, for Greg's wage, every time you picked or you divided the Y by its X matching X value, you had 9. So this time for Kevin's table, I'm going to ask you to pause, and you're going to pick any three pairs you want. The pairs that I choose might be different, but hopefully we'll all have the same constant of proportionality. So as we compare our constant of proportionality, or K values, even though you might not have picked the same three pairs that I picked, hopefully you have 8.25 or 8 25/100. So now let's look at the next question. Which person has the highest hourly wage? How do you know? How are we going to find the hourly wage? Well, from one of our lessons, we learned that if we take the Y value divided by its matching X value, not only is that now called the constant of proportionality, the K value, it's also known as the unit rate. And if I look back at what the labels are for my Y values, the Y values, we're talking about the dollars earned. And the X values, we're talking about the hours. So to answer our question, which person has the highest hourly wage? Well, we're looking again at these constant of proportionality, which must mean Savannah. And I'm just going to abbreviate, whoops, I'll go back and abbreviate Savannah with an S if you don't mind. And she must have earned $9.50. If we're looking at that, it would be dollars, dimes, and pennies. So we want to include her at 0. Greg earned, it looks like $9. So we're going to put $9 for Greg's earning. So again, this is $9.50 per hour, $9 per hour. And finally, Kevin's wage was 8.25. So in money, we have dollars, dimes, and pennies. So this is $8.25 per hour. So to answer our question, which person had the highest wage per hour? It was Savannah. Because she earned the highest amount per hour. Finally, the last question says, if all 3 friends worked 20 hours during the week, how much would each person earn? Then it asks us to show an equation with the K value for each. So now let's go back and highlight important pieces of that sentence. First of all, it mentioned that each friend works 20 hours, and based on the table, 20 hours is referring to the X value. It also asks how much would each person earn. So if we look at the tables, what each person earns is the Y value. It then requests that we write an equation with the K value. So let's go back now and talk about what parts are what. We mentioned that hours is referring to X. How much we earn refers to Y. And the K value would be the constant of proportionality. So if we start out with Savannah's equation, we're trying to write an equation in this form. And because you might be more comfortable with this, I'm just going to reverse this kx equals y. They mentioned that we want to fill in the K value, and if we look back up here, Savannah earned $9.50. That was a constant of proportionality. And we want to know, or we do know that she is working 20 hours. That's what the question gives us. And if we figure this out, we're going to be able to figure out the total amount, Y, her total earnings. So stop for a moment, use your calculator, and figure out what Savannah could earn in 20 hours. So if my calculations are correct, I have 190 equals Y, the Y value that matches 20 on the table. I would have 20 in the X column and 190 in the Y column if we place this in the table. So what we just found out is she earns $190 for 20 hours of work. Let's now look at Greg's information. Again, we want to use this Y equals KX, or in this case, KX equals Y. For Greg, he earns $9 per hour. So that 9 is a constant of proportionality, also known as the K value. Again, we're asked for 20 hours of work, and that's going to tell us the total amount of earnings. So this would be $180, which is what the Y equals. And so again, on his table, if we had 20 in the X column, it would be matched with 180 in the Y column, and that means that Greg made $180 for 20 hours of work. So what I'd like you to do is try Kevin's equation on your own. All hopefully you came up with 165. That would be if Kevin worked 20 hours, he'd earn a total of $165. Before we go to, I want to just preview what's coming up next lesson. You're going to notice that I mentioned that there was a 20 in the X column and 190. We're going to next lesson start working with ordered pairs, and we're going to call our X the input and our Y the output, and we're going to graph them. We're going to make a pair and graph them as 1 point on the graph. So see you next lesson.